Testing, testing, 1, 2, testing. Testing, testing, 1, 2, testing. All right. So I actually just had 5 minutes of just complete dead air that went nowhere. Anyway, I came to you guys a little bit less than 24 hours ago and told you I was going to have a conversation tonight regarding trust and how to build it and how to protect yourself and the purposes of it. Well, tonight I'm actually going to give you the basics of it, because whenever we're going out and we're having people create these trusts, a lot of times what we're doing, we're using someone that has no clue how to defend it, and they're, to be frank, they're just people that's reading off a sheet of paper and they've never put one together that they had to defend, right? So they're using these templates that they're finding online somewhere, and then they're filling in blanks and thinking that is all they need to do. And most people that use them, while not necessarily understanding them, don't have the wherewithal to defend it, or they don't even have a clue of how to use it to be most effective. So what I'm going to do tonight, just like I told you guys, and you see in the title, I'm going to explain the trust benefits, and I'm going to go deeper into it, because not only do you need to have someone create these trusts for you that know how to defend it, which is the most important part, but they need to be able to show you how to make sure it is recognized, it is registered, and it is beneficial for you. Now, what do I mean by that? I do the principles of chess in law. And the second step is to move pieces to maximize their spaces, right? So it's using them to your best advantage, because you have to know how to use them forward, you know how to use them backwards, but you also have to understand how to take that one piece and use it to its fullest potential. So that's one of the things that I do and I help you grow with. Now, the let's get into it, because most people that are creating these trusts, they're people that are primarily, and I apologize for the time too, because I'm a little bit behind. Well, actually, a lot of bit behind, because I told you guys 11 o'clock. Actually, I told you 6. Then I told you 11, and then I put this together. And I don't do lives. This is the thing. So me doing the live with this new software ish, I'm not very familiar with it, but I also want to make sure you guys have it, and I look good on it. And, well, you can see me well. I don't know about the looking good. Anyway, you want to use it to not only protect your estate, but you want to use it to protect your name. You want to use it to protect your assets. You want to make sure your children are protected within it, and how they're using it, how they receive it, and all those good things. But again, this is not something that is taught whenever it's set up for you. This is one of the things that I will give you when I set up yours, if you use me in order to set your trust up for the most part. Right? Now, let's go into again, this is just the basics. So I'm going to give you the filler of the pieces of it. Now, what are the benefits of a trust? Now, the most common is a living trust. And assets can be protected from both legal battles and or creditors of the beneficiary. Now, basically, what that means, if you're using your assets, like your home, your business, your vehicles, these assets can be protected by the trust if it's set up properly. And then, two, it can also be protected if people understand how to defend it. Because that's where a lot of people are getting caught up at, because they're putting these assets and things inside of a trust, and they're trusting the person that set it up knew what they were doing, and then they're trying to figure out how to defend it once it's set up if it's challenged. And generally it's going to be challenged by a relative or a creditor. And that's where these things need to be established, not only inside the trust, but by someone that knows how to defend what's written. And also making sure what's written is proper. Because remember, you're speaking one language, you go to court, they're speaking a completely different language. Now you think you're speaking the same one because it sounds similar, but it's not. And that's the exact same way with the language of a trust. Because when you're being attacked by, again, relatives or even creditors, if they're speaking in one language, you're speaking a different one, you're going to get caught up because you may be answering something that doesn't benefit you, or if the trust is not written properly, it might leave a door open for these people to come in and then take apart the trust or take what you were attempting to protect in the first beginning. Now, the trust itself can be the settlor, again, another word, but can maintain more control over what is done with an asset after they have passed it on than they would if it transferred by way of a will or by simply giving the asset to the beneficiary. Now, these are the tax protections. Because if you see more of the wealthy use trust, because what they call them, trust fund babies. That's literal trust fund. The trust itself is set up as a business. It's set up as a corporation, and it's going through not only monthly payments, going through lifetime payments. And these are things that are set up prior to. And then it's, hell, our president is a trust fund baby. He was given money that he later learned how to grow. However he did it, he figured it out. His children are trust fund babies. They are figuring out how to make it grow, however they're doing it. But these are the things, and this is where that term comes from, because it's the transferring and the avoidance of certain taxes, and it eliminates certain fees. Because let's say you were to pass on and you had a will, and your will was to go to your house was to go to your oldest child. Well, there's a tax for the transfer as well as a transfer fee. But if it's part of the trust, you eliminate two of those because the trust itself already owns the house. The trust itself has already determined that your child gets that. But again, it's about the verbiage in the trust itself that allows you to get to that point. Because it's not just, oh, it's done. No, there's certain things that need to be said. There are certain things that need to be registered, and there are certain methods in which to do that. And following that process is one of the things that separates a lot of the people that don't know how it works. They're just using that cut and paste technique that I spoke about. And these are the separators of why certain trusts can be broken and why certain cannot. And this is also something because I had a young man from Canada, appreciate you this morning, that was on the live, and he kind of spoke up. And so it made me look at a few things because there are subtle differences between the trust that's set up in America versus a trust that's set up in Canada. While the language is similar, I'm going to say, although they speak, different languages in Canada than they do here in the U.S. The language within the trust itself, the setup, the legal jargon, so to speak, is similar. So while there are subtle differences, there are still the same a lot of protections. But again, these are things that need to be addressed properly. And that's one of the things, like I said, I actually looked it up this morning because I was curious for the most part. Now, the last is the beneficiaries may save money on probate and executor fees after the death of the settlor. There's that word again, settlor. That will be the one that it's passing from, transferring from. Generally, the person that's setting it up. So, while we use the context of the settlor, it's understanding that the trust itself is a tool. Because I don't know if you follow me on Instagram, one of my things is the enemy of my enemy is not a friend of me. They are both tools in which I use to destroy both of them. Because what you have to understand is every action that you have is a tool. If you're using me for a consultation for some legal action, I'm a tool. If you're using me for setting up your trust, I'm a tool. If you're using me to defend your trust, I'm a tool. Now, how you take advantage of it is up to you. These are the things that I'm allotting for you. Because living trusts are often set up with a specific purpose. And for example, parents or grandparents might establish a trust for an adult child with a disability. Now, this happens actually more often than not because it's unconsciously set up or accidental. I shouldn't say unconsciously. It's accidentally set up, which is almost unconscious. But it's done through, just to give you an example. I worked in several, I don't even know if you would really call them high paying jobs, but there was a time I was actually making a little bit of coinage that was legit. And I got because I think one of my sons, they were trying to have him tested for a disability. So what happened is they gave me a projected number based off the income that or the amount of money I had put into. I don't know exactly how it worked out, but his number at that time was like $2,400, and I was like, damn, that's high. And then they were like, no, that's per child. I was like, I got a flock of kids, so if that's $2,400 per child, I was out there putting in work. But it's the context of understanding this is almost the allotment or the annuitized amount of money that was put into something by me accidentally for my children. Now, if he had a disability, these are the numbers that he would get at that time. And, it changes depending on certain other factors. But at the time, that's what the number was. So while most of us aren't doing it purposely, a lot of us aren't doing it at all. So every little change that you're looking at, everything else that you're attempting to set up, that's where the ideas should come to fruition and get you where you're trying to go to. Now, the easy, because this is also something that people forget whenever we're talking about police officers, because I say they have a fiduciary duty. They have a fiduciary purpose. Well, what is a fiduciary? Because I get that more often than not, and it's like, for me, it's simple. The Constitution is a trust document. They signed an oath to defend and uphold the trust document. What made it a trust document? Because it's a covenant for the benefit of the people. Say it one more time. The benefit of humans that are not public servants, because these words have meaning no matter how you want to turn them around. Servitude, amenable, that's another word that police officers seem to not know. I actually did a video. I've done a couple videos. Amenable, that literally falls under servitude, which means you are a servant. And the fiduciary is a person or institution that manages a trust, assets, and property for the benefit of the trustee, for the trust beneficiaries. Fiduciaries are held to a high standard of care and must act in the best interest of the trust. Say that one more time, because again, police officers forget this part. They are held at a high standard. They have a high standard of care and must act in the best interest of the trust. Now, most police officers tell you something stupid like, oh, well, I work for such police department. No, you don't. Because your oath of office doesn't say such police department. It says the people. And these are the things that are misconstrued, right? Because what are the responsibilities of the fiduciary? It's asset management. Fiduciaries are responsible for the day-to-day management of the trust assets. This includes evaluating investment markets and ensuring the assets align with the trust goals. Now, again, some simple, but often overlooked. This is something that's done for the benefit of the beneficiaries. It's actively managed. Now, the legal ownership. The fiduciary have legal ownership of the trust assets and property. This is why a lot of people get upset and they kind of over, because they forget how. And then what happens is you have people that'll try to put themselves as the fiduciary and the beneficiary, which is illegal. I'm going to say that. Well, I'm doing it because no, it's still illegal. Now, is there a way that you can do that in which you can get? Absolutely. But again, that's why you have someone else that can offer you. Because remember, it's a person or institution. That's the caveat. That's the loophole. A person or institution that manages a trust assets. See, that's where a lot of people, because again, the ideas, these, but again, I can go on. Acting in the trust's best interest. The fiduciaries must act in the best interest of the trust beneficiaries. Now, the examples of the fiduciaries. Trustees are fiduciaries who manage the assets of the trust. Now, I'm gonna kind of flop a little bit. Now, we're talking about police officers. They manage the assets of the city. They make sure the city runs well, which is also part of their duty of care, which is why they have a requirement to provide medical, which is why they have a requirement if somebody's on the side of the road to offer help to them or assistance. Shouldn't use the word help, assistance. That's why they have these duties, because they are fiduciaries. Executors are fiduciaries who settle an estate and carry out the terms of a will. Executors are fiduciaries who settle an estate and carry out the terms of a will. Almost sound like the same thing, but we're saying two different words for two different actions within one asset. Trustee, executor, fiduciary. This is where, again, the confusion comes in, because we're doing cut and paste and we're filling in blanks. We can't possibly understand how to interact and use the proper term in the proper place for the proper reason if we've never done it before. Therefore, we leave open gaps and we allow creditors to challenge the trust, and then we don't understand how to defend against them. So, this is why, again, I'm going through this because I keep watching this, I'm listening to this, and I hate to laugh, but there are a lot of people falling into these traps. And hey, here's my money, just do that, make it for me, and they have no idea what they're doing because they think, okay, I saw this on YouTube, and I saw this guy, he had a trust on the screen, and all I had to do was fill in the blanks. What law was he using to set it up? Did he use the right terms in the right places for the right reasons? And that's where we're getting caught up at. That's why I'm doing this now. Now, financial advisors are fiduciaries who provide advice on investments and other financial matters. Now, financial advisors for a trust generally is either someone that's doing stock trades of or mutual funds and bonds and different things of that nature, which is also great, you know, for later investments, the buy and holds. These are people that you'll generally find in banks or such assets as, I think one of mine is Charles Schwab, another one is JP Morgan, and then another one is in Fidelity. I'll talk to you about Fidelity later because they really are working my last nerve. But, you know, you have assets that are in different places for different reasons, and each one is generally where your advisors would be because each asset is supposed to be working differently at the same time to create something at the same time. But again, is the verbiage correct in your trust? Now, let's talk about a trustee. A trustee in a trust is a person or institution. There's that combination again. Legally responsible for managing and administering the assets held within a trust, acting on behalf of the grantor. We have another one of those words. We have 4 different words describing one action. The grantor is the person who created the trust. But again, are we using them in the right places? Are we using them at the right time? Are we actually using them at all? Because we're copying and pasting. And that's why you need someone that understands the terminologies that's in there. Because again, 4 different words, one action. To distribute those assets to designated beneficiaries according to the terms outlined in the trust document. Essentially, they hold legal title to the trust property and must manage it solely for the benefit of the beneficiaries. Now, who does that sound like? The fiduciary, the executor. These are, but again, why they use multiple terms for the same action? Because each one means something different at a different time and for a different purpose. Now, the fiduciary responsibility. Remember that? I literally just said that. The trustee has a legal fiduciary duty to act in the best interest of the beneficiaries, meaning they must manage trust assets with utter care and loyalty. They must manage the trust assets with utter care and loyalty. That's literally in most police officers' mantra. Because again, their fiduciary duty. Now, again, when we're talking about trust, we're talking about something similar, not the same. But that's where I go to whenever I'm talking about these same things, because their duties is for the utter care and loyalty to the public. In this case, it's to the beneficiaries. Now, the managing assets. Again, this is still for the trustee and the grantor. This includes investing trust funds, paying bills related to the trust, and distributing assets as per the trust agreement. Notice each one has the agreement laid out for each action within the trust. We remember to do that when we're copying and pasting for each asset at each time for each beneficiary. Are we doing that? Because again, we're talking about paying bills, distributing assets, and investing. So not only does the trust itself has to grow and improve, but it also has to be distributed because it also has to continue to feed. Now, accountability. Trustees are required to keep detailed records of all trust transactions and provide accountings to beneficiaries upon request. What is that called? A FOIA request. Public arrest records. These are things, again, I'm using two parallels for the same argument. Because most people have no idea. Hold on, let me get a little taste of my little yak. That's actually pretty good. Let me go. I'm saying the same thing about two separate parallels because, again, one has a duty to the people itself. The other one has a duty within actions that are deliberately written for specific people or institutions, however we want to label that. And lastly, is they are appointed by the grantor. In the police officer's case, they are appointed by the governor. I'll get into that again because I've said it before. Now it's going to come full circle. And this is why I tell you, I show you how to maximize each piece because every action has a hierarchy. And within that hierarchy is understanding where each piece goes and how each piece moves. And that's the separation. I'm not going to give you some, oh, I found this on the internet. Let me write your name in there. Let me write the son's name in there, your daughter's name. No, I'm going to show you how to put that together. I'm going to get an action plan for you. We're going to put all that stuff together, and then what are we going to do with it? How are we going to manage it? How are we going to make it grow? What do you want to do with the proceeds? How are we going to get, but because again, that has to be placed inside the trust. That's not going to come from copy and paste. Because generally, these copy and paste templates, that's exactly what they are. They're templates because you need to understand how to expand them, how to expound on the things that are already written. But you also need to use the proper terminology and proper language. And just like I said, even in Canada, there are certain caveats where they're different from the US, but they're also very similar. So understanding words have power and they maintain them throughout this entire action, whether we like them or not. And understand the verbiage and the language that's being put in and savored within this. Now, can an individual, or this can be for an individual or an institution, just like I just said. A trustee can be a family member, a friend, a lawyer, accountant, or a financial institution such as a bank. Now, I actually just gave you three. Neither one of them are my trustee fiduciaries, which is Fidelity, J.P. Morgan, and Charles Schwab. Yeah. They are tools. They're not the fiduciary. So it's understanding how those actions work. And the trust itself. The beneficiary of a trust is a person or group of people who receive the benefits of a trust. The beneficiary is a person or group who receive the benefits of a trust. Remember, the trust can be a person or an institution, such as an LLC, a DBA. I'm going to go, because again, all those are secondary. Understanding how to use that tool. That person who creates the trust is called the settler. The person who manages the trust is called the trustee. The person who receives the benefits is the beneficiary. And how do the beneficiaries benefit from the trust? Income. Beneficiaries may receive income generated by the trust assets. Trust fund babies. The assets. Beneficiaries may receive the trust assets themselves. Because again, there is not a, if done properly. Let me say that correctly. If done properly, you don't have the estate fees and all the other stuff. Other advantages. Beneficiaries may receive other advantages as specified in trust terms, which again can be pretty much anything that's done and set up properly. Because again, what I kept saying, if they do this right, if they do that correctly. Now, the beneficiaries have a right to monitor the trust as far as its activities and how it's growing and how it's being managed. Remember, I'll get into that. Beneficiaries can take legal action if they suspect the trustee has breached their fiduciary duty, which is a lawsuit. I actually just said that. Because again, if there's a breach of duty, that's literally what it's called, you can file a federal lawsuit against them. And the beneficiaries have a right to depend on the type of trust and state laws. You can do, again, same thing with a police officer. There are certain things that you can do at the state level. There are certain things that you can do at the federal level. It depends on what it is that you're looking to do and how it's managed. And what type of beneficiaries can there be? We just heard that there are several types of fiduciaries. Why would there not be several types of beneficiaries? Well, one is a vested beneficiary. This beneficiary has a, what do you call it? They have a invested or an interest in the trust, which is, as some people call it, the skin in the game. Because remember, it can be a corporation, or it can be something that's labeled as a tenant for life, which is somebody who has possession of an asset that's within the trust. They can become a tenant for life because they have an interest in the trust. That's a vested beneficiary. Contingent beneficiary. Secondary beneficiaries who receive benefits if the primary beneficiary is no longer living or cannot be found. Now, this again is similar to a will, and it's also great in protecting you early and late. And this is one of the things that I believe the soccer player, his soon-to-be ex-wife, just found out. She married him for 2 years, decided to get a divorce from him because, again, that's what their prenup required. She stayed married for 24 months, and then after that, prenup kicks in. But when she went to push up the prenup, she was like, "No, I don't want the prenup," and she was attempting to get rid of it. He allowed her, "Yeah, get rid of the prenup. I want half his assets." Yeah, his assets are in a trust. He doesn't even he doesn't manage his. He's not a fiduciary of his trust. He's a beneficiary of his trust. He gets living expenses. So she's upset that he gets living expenses and not that baseball or soccer money, because all his money goes into the trust. All his investments are in the trust because the trust is managed by the corporation. A beneficiary is what he is, which is a vested beneficiary, because he's receiving money, not only that he's putting in to allow it to grow, but he's also a tenant for life, which doesn't give him any claim to any asset that's in that trust, per the verbiage. So there are certain tools that can be used and even weaponized. And it's all about the protection, because I went to you guys and I told you about the cameras. I told you about the little things, even when you go on vacation. I told you about the sexual contract. I'm giving you all of these things because we're in an age now where protection is worth the money. Because either you're going to pay a little bit for it now, or you're going to pay a lot bit for it later. I'm going to say that one. You're going to pay a little bit for it now, or you're going to pay a lot bit for it later. So even in these aspects, understanding how it works and understanding how to get it and create something that's greater than yourself is now available to you. Why? Because of this tool. So thank you guys for watching. I'm gonna keep going in, and hopefully I can get a few more lives, and let's keep this thing running pretty smooth. So you having access to me, greatest now at Yahoo, and we can keep going. We can keep growing. I'll see you guys soon. Supreme, and I'm out.